our speakers, Ajay Kaushal, who's a co-founder and director of Buildesk, Rahul Anand, founder and CEO of Hopscotch. We have Sharad Sanghi, MD and CEO of Netmagic Solutions, and Siddharth Shah, the co-founder of Ascent Health and Wellness Solutions.
Good morning. This is Mumbai. Where's the Josh? Good morning.
Good morning.
That's better. Mumbai, Meri, Jaan. That's our theme. So we all want to talk about what is it that makes Mumbai tick? What is it that makes Mumbai an attractive destination for startups? I have an esteemed panel here with me. I have Siddharth, so we're going to talk about his business and his business in healthcare. I have Sharad, who's going to talk about Netmagic. I also have Ajay, who's going to talk about Buildesk. And then finally, I have Rahul, who will talk about Hopscotch. So, Siddharth, I'm going to ask you to sort of open this up by talking briefly about how you got started, why you chose Mumbai to sort of get this started, and what makes Mumbai sort of the happening place for you to still build this business up and not really look at another location.
So I think the obvious thing was because I've been born and brought up in Mumbai, so it just absolutely made sense for me to start right here in Mumbai. Also, I think one of the things that I've found that's worked really well for us is the fact that I got an opportunity to work with my friends. So all my co-founders are my friends who again been born and brought up, not just in Mumbai but the same locality where we grew up, Ghatpokar, so we're all just a bunch of goofy kids from the same locality who went to the same school, who were friends in engineering, who all kind of came together. I think what's really worked for us also from the fact is that in Mumbai, while I think a lot of people keep speaking about the startup culture being in Bangalore or Delhi, what's happened is for companies that have grown beyond a point and have become successful, it's actually very easy to then get talent in Mumbai. So yes, we do have an office in Bangalore also, but our head office, founders, all of us continue to be in Mumbai because I think there's enough talent in Mumbai, which is also looking at extremely phenomenal opportunities to work here. And I think it works the other way also, right? My sense is compared to Bangalore or Delhi, there are fewer high quality startups in Mumbai, but the ones that are actually able to attract high quality talent. I think there is enough and more talent that is there over here. And briefly about my journey, so I said born and brought up here, did my engineering here, directly went to IMA, decided to opt out of placements after working for 3 months with Goldman Sachs. That was good enough for me to realize that I'm not cut out for working with them. And that's how the journey started, and it's been now, it's almost been 6 years since I started here in Mumbai, but I think after a couple of pivots, which I think is a very polite word for failures, so I think after a couple of failures, I think now we've hit the ground running in terms of what we do over here.
So I'll actually come back to some of those points that you sort of talked about a little later on. Once I've had Sharad also talk about Netmagic. Congratulations, you are now inducted into the Mumbai Hall of Fame. Talk about your journey and the building of your business in Mumbai.
So, part of the reason is also what Siddharth just mentioned, that I also born and brought up in, not born but brought up in Mumbai. But the reason for selecting Mumbai as the headquarters for our business is actually in a data center business. The two most important lifelines are connectivity and power. And Mumbai has the best power in the country. In fact, Tata Power is ranked as having better power quality than even New York City. In a year, we don't lose power for more than 43 minutes. Sum total of all outages in Mumbai is, whereas in Bangalore, we have data centers in Bangalore, Chennai, Noida. We lose power every other day, right? Although we run on diesel generators, but it's a much when you're doing, so actually Mumbai is the data center capital of the country. 60% of data center business, all your major hyperscalers, every single large major e-commerce players has their primary presence. They may work, some of them may be based out of Bangalore, but actually their servers all are in, most of the servers are in Mumbai. To talk a little bit about the journey, got BV Jagdish here, who started this business in the US. I met him at a TiE event in 1997 in New Delhi. He's based out of Bangalore. My next meeting with him is in Bangalore, but obviously started the business in Bombay for the reasons I just mentioned. I started this in 1998 because that's the year in which internet services were made, where private companies could start internet services. At that time, I didn't have the capital, so all the major players like Satyam Infoway, which is now Sifi and others, were already only looking at consumer internet services. So nobody was looking at internet for business. So the idea, following from the successful model that Exodus showed in the US, was to offer mission-critical internet for business. And that's how we ended up setting up data centers right from the year 2000. And so now it's been like almost 19 years of providing data center services with over 2,000 clients. And we've gone through a series of funding rounds. From 2000, when Jagdish Angel invested along with eVentures, then Nexus, then Fidelity, then Cisco and Nokia, and then finally we got acquired by Entity Communications last year. So, so that's been the journey. And Mumbai, it's amazing in terms of talent. I'm not sure why people feel that there's no good talent. There's enough talent available in Mumbai, and we can talk about it later when you discuss that. Thank you.
So Ajay's company BuildDesk is something that all of us know about, and it's a company that's familiar to most of us. But Ajay has actually built a profitable, large business out of Bombay, and I know it's financial services and fintech, and Bombay is a financial capital. But what were the other reasons, Ajay? I mean, if you sort of think about when you started your journey and you sort of built this business.
Thank you. Normally when I get a call, I'm normally asked to talk about payments and fintech and these things. So it was a very pleasant thing when a friend of mine, Arihant, called and said, we want you to come and talk about Mumbai. So I said, wow, this is what I really, really wanted to do. I'll just make 3 or 4 statements and give you some facts about our business and myself. Till I was 22 or 23 years old, I had traveled across 8 or 9 cities in India because my father was in the army. And I had changed 8 or 9 schools across different parts of India. I got a job in Mumbai. After that, I have not changed the street on which I live in Mumbai. I've been living on the same street for the last 26 years in Mumbai. When I got my first job in Mumbai, I was talking to my friends and they said, you know what, Mumbai, paisa udta hai, pakadne wala chahiye. And that's how I ended up in Mumbai with my first job. And we've all grown from there. I used to work in Mumbai, and in the year 2000, 3 of us left and we started BuildDesk. It's been an amazing journey. We've built phenomenal friends here. We built a phenomenal business. And I can say we don't have an office in Bangalore. We don't have an office in Gurgaon. We just bought a company in Hyderabad. But apart from that, I think we've got most of the things that we wanted. And I think some of the things which the other panelists mentioned, I think the predictability of Bombay is what is really, really great. Everything works. If somebody says we will come, they come. Whether it's electricity, whether it's people, or whether it's the trains. And I think that ethos that the place works and that everything happens here is what this thing we really like. And lastly, Bombay has all the large businesses. It's just so happened that I think over the last 10 years that sheen of a business which is a startup business has moved out of Bombay. I think we need to get it back to Bombay to get the sheen also around it because there is money, there is revenue and there is profit also that's here. Thanks.
So Rahul, you also built a successful business out of Bombay, and you just talked about the sheen of startups. Tell us your story and what makes Bombay still tick for you and makes it attractive.
Sure. So I'll just start with a little personal journey and then that evolved into how and why we picked Bombay. So I'm Rahul, born and raised in Bombay, went to Harvard Business School and right out went to New York to join the leadership of a company called Diapers.com. We built the biggest children's business in America and sold it to Amazon for a little over $500 million. After the acquisition took place, I began to think about what to do next. And I spent a lot of time down on the ground here in India, exploring different opportunities. And that's where I saw a huge white space in the consumer environment where there was a huge gaping hole for kids fashion. We had a lot of kapra in India, right, really cheap clothes, but there was nothing for the aspirational Indian parent as they traded up the socioeconomic ladder. And so we got started about 6 years ago. We first plugged the market with a lot of Western brands, and then very quickly realized if you want to build a consumer business and win in a country like India, you need strong product market fit. And so about 3.5 years ago, we pivoted. We now build our own brand. In a span of about 3 years, we are one of the top 10 or 15 brands in the country in the fashion space. And that's across men's, women's, and kids. And we continue to grow this as we move forward. I think a lot of our success has been an outcome of marrying both left and right brain thinking. And that's what leads to one of the key reasons why Bombay has been extreme linchpin in our story. We've got a huge amount of engineering horsepower almost anywhere you look in the country. But what makes Bombay especially great is your ability to tap into strong creative minds and thinking, right? It's one thing to have a lot of algorithms drive what you do, but when you can visually communicate a picture's worth 1,000 words, and that's what's enabled us to leapfrog a lot of our competitors and really build a brand that customers have strong resonance with, that they love, and they continue to come back with because they're delighted. And so the journey of a startup is never a smooth ride. There's lots of ups and downs, but I think the ability to have everything under one roof, engineering and design and creative and photography, has enabled us to build a really strong consumer brand on the consumer internet. We currently have an office in Bombay. It's about a 350-odd member office. We have an office in Shenzhen over in China, another 50, 60 people. We don't have an office outside Bombay yet, but we'll contemplate extending that in the coming year of 2019 to try and ensure that we can continue to sort of bring the best minds into the organization.
Thanks, Rahul. So, Sharad and Ajay, you guys have built companies, and one of the things that was consistent across all of you was the fact about the availability of talent, right? And talent is something that becomes absolutely critical when you're sort of trying to build a business of scale. Considering the fact that you have built, profitable, sustainable businesses, and this has been built out of Bombay, tell us about your experience, especially with regard to talent. And this is something that, Siddharth, I also want you to sort of talk about, because you did mention that. And you are in a pharma, healthcare related kind of a business, where probably because of the sheer number of pharma companies that sort of operate out of Bombay, there may be a lot more talent available. But you're also sort of a technology-enabled company, which essentially means that you also needed domain experience, but as well as the tech aspect as well. So I would love to hear, and I think the audience would also sort of love to hear about, if there are challenges in sort of being able to sort of hire talent, but what were also the advantages? And I'm sure all of you have had experiences around this, especially with regard to training, as well as being able to retain them, as well as employability.
So yeah, I think, coming from a perspective, so effectively just 30 seconds on what we do, we are trying to become a one-stop provider for all the medicines to patients, to practitioners, that is doctors, and to pharmacies. Right? We believe that at least in the outpatient healthcare space in the country, the interaction between the patient practitioner and the pharmacy is quite broken, which for example, leads to things like there being no paid insurance, right? So you have a scenario where a patient, if he does not manage health for 5 years and gets an angioplasty or a bypass surgery done, he gets complete reimbursement from the insurers, but he does not get it to, let's say, buy his medicines every month or to do his tests or visit his doctors. We believe that that is on account of multiple factors in India, things like your branded generics, as I said, no integrated platform. So effectively, while our underlying thesis is that this commerce can be fixed through, or this problem can be fixed through an efficient supply chain and technology, right? So we're at the intersection of healthcare, pharma and technology in terms of trying to solve that. And I think as you rightly pointed out, I mean in terms of healthcare, the largest base of healthcare or pharma companies does remain Mumbai, which does provide us a phenomenal understanding. I also believe that I'm fortunate. I mean, my parents are doctors, so is my wife. So, again, that is something that comes very helpful and handy.
That's been an advantage then.
Huge advantage, huge advantage. Also, I think in terms of our, as I said, since 6 years, we've actually just opened up our Bangalore office about a year back. But all of us have remained here in Mumbai, right? So the core of the business, the core of the technology, all of that is here, right? So yes, there is some talent which is unable to move, right? And hence we have optionality for people to be located either in Bangalore or Mumbai. But still, I would say that 85% of our headcount and 100% of our business talent resides, or the core business operations, pharma, healthcare talent does reside in Mumbai. So I don't think that there is a huge challenge in doing that. And I think, as I said, there are enough people who are passing out of, the IIT over here, right? There are enough people passing out of good engineering colleges who want to who want to work with a very high quality company over here, right? And if there are fewer high quality companies, in fact, it's the other way, right? The good talent is then fighting to get into a higher quality company that is based in Mumbai rather than the other way around, right? I mean, in Bangalore, we've heard things like, there's startup A who's giving a 10% premium over startup B, and people are switching jobs every 3-6 months. In fact, the retention for us in Mumbai has been phenomenal because if you're a good company, people want to continue with you.
I think retention is a key point that you mentioned. I think retention is about 12%. Attrition is about 12%, and the core team has pretty much been intact for the last several years. It's only the round-the-clock shifts that we see any attrition. It's a very disciplined job. Bulk, we hire totally. We've got about 1,500 people across the country, out of which around 900 are in Mumbai, about 700 are engineers, and as you said, there's a lot of good feeder colleges in and around Bombay, so it's not difficult to get a top talent in Mumbai. Also, it's a very disciplined job because when you're monitoring and managing customer mission-critical infrastructure, right, the work ethic is very important. I'm not sure about other cities, but I know that in Mumbai the work ethic is excellent, despite the fact that people have to commute from Thane and Vashi and all over the place to Mumbai. Still always on time. Predictability, as you said, is very good, and retention is excellent. So I think there's no problem. It's not that we only do stuff in Bombay. We have data centers in Bangalore, Chennai. We've got 3 development centers, one in Mumbai, one in Pune, and a small one in Bangalore. So it's not that we only want to get talent from everywhere, but getting good talent in Mumbai is not a problem. At least we've not seen this in the last 20 years.
And Ajay, considering yours is more fintech, financial services, domain knowledge here, but technical expertise and technology. Have you had challenges in sort of being able to sort of find and retain talent, or is it not an issue at this point?
So I think money making is a very boring business, and it's only about execution. I actually think that this whole tech thing is a little overrated. It's important, definitely, but I think it's not the be all and end all of creating a business. A lot of tech things are, I think, features that people are trying to create, which I don't know how far they will go and create a viable business. Can they be sold to somebody? The definite answer is yes, it can be a business model. But I think if you are going to look to create something which is reasonably large, sustaining, and can keep people employed and keep them motivated, I think at the end of the day, money making is really, really boring. It's made in the detail. It's not the exciting product manager's job every second day that you'll come up with exciting. It's got done over a period of time. And even if you took people who would like to talk about a Google or a Facebook, but there's also an Infosys, there's also other companies in India. They've all made money. And even today, whether it's Google or Facebook, there's only one thing that works, which is advertising. You can have lots of other product features, everything else, but the core is only the two products that they have. So I think this whole idea that we need to have extremely cutting edge product managers, I don't know what they actually do, but I don't think everybody needs them. India is a place where you need execution. India has not created such large companies because the market in India cannot take so many large companies. So I think maybe we need a lot of small companies who do well and who move on. But if you want to build a large company, then the market is also outside India. If you look at all these companies, they're able to grow because they also do things outside their home country. India cannot have, for example, even if we took our payments business, there is no room after a certain point in time. You have to be outside. Therefore, to say that, in India I'll keep doing something and I'll keep doing something, it doesn't happen. So I think coming back to talent and to say that I need a lot of product managers, I actually feel that you don't need a lot of smart people to do business. You need a few smart people, and then you need to execute, and you need to execute at scale, and you need to keep delivering and delivering and delivering. Because you can't keep changing a product. For a large company to change a product takes a few years. So I think would we like more product people available in Mumbai or around Mumbai? Definitely one would want, but I don't think it's constraining for people to build a viable, scalable business in Mumbai. And I do think we face some serious pressure to go and hunt for people outside Mumbai.
But then again, the other factor that sort of comes into this is the aspect of cost, right? So if talent is available, is it at a cost that makes early stage companies and startups at a disadvantage compared to other locations?
See, actually I don't come from a philosophy of reducing cost, because reducing cost only reduces jobs. So I think you have to pay more and earn more rather than reduce and pay less. So I think if the general philosophy is that you earn more and pay more, or pay more and earn more, I think one needs to decide their model. And will I pay more and earn more, or will I earn more and pay more? I think that has to be decided, because in India everything is reduced cost. So after reducing cost, it is reducing revenue. If you reduce revenue, there is no job.
So that's a good answer, because that's a frequent comment that a lot of people make about the fact that the cost of doing business in a city like Mumbai is more than some of the other locations that they sort of talk about. And this is a constant refrain that I sort of hear. And the answer that you gave was excellent, because that's the answer that a lot of people also sort of talk about, is saying it's a question of, you really want to build it and there's a cost associated, but then can you build a scalable business the way we can build a business here? And we have all the other ingredients to actually make it successful enough to be able to build a scalable business.
Yeah, I think so.
So Rahul, this is one thing that I also want to ask you. If you had the choice again to build something like this, would you still choose Bombay, and would you still choose it for all the reasons that you sort of talked about?
Yeah, look, it's a very hard question. I don't think there's a right answer. I think what we do know is there are fantastic opportunities in Bangalore. There's fantastic talent pool. We don't need to dodge that question at all. The question is whether you are building an organization with the right DNA, whether people who work with you because they're passionate about what they do and come to work every morning wanting to give their 120 and 130%. And I think this is where my mind is a little bit mixed, right? When we talk to a lot of talent in Bangalore, you can throw a stone and get like 20 and get about 25 different jobs. The question is, are you really picking something because it's giving you a bigger paycheck? Or do you have the conviction and self-confidence to pick something that you have your heart in, granted in an industry that is growing, and you have the belief and in yourself that you will be able to come to work every day, work really hard, and you will excel no matter where you go. And I think that's where we find there's a lot of passion with the people that we end up hiring here in Bombay. They're here not because they're necessarily getting the best opportunity, but because they love doing what they're doing. And I think that's what gives them the impetus to come to work every day and execute.
So that's important, right? I mean, the passion and the vision of the sharing of the vision and wanting to really build something, I think is something that Bombay does have. And I think Bombay also has a very strong, and this is something that I've seen after having lived across multiple geographies, right? Is the fact that Bombay to a certain degree also has a certain business culture that sort of permeates it, and that permeates across everything, right? And I think that actually talks about the fact that at the end of the day, I actually want to go and build a business, and I want to build a business that can be scaled up. I want to build a business that's profitable, and I want to build a business that is, sort of going to be large enough.
Sorry, just to add there, right? I think we're a consumer business, right? We're not managing 200 accounts. You're adding tens of thousands of customers every single day on your platform, and you can't build this business with a chosen few, 3 of your leaders, and who treat everyone like children. You need everyone to behave like an adult. You need them to be empowered. You need to be decentralized. And those things are a lot easier to do when you have people involved in the company for the right reason. Right? If they're there just to make a paycheck or to build their resume so they get the next job a few years in, you don't build a great consumer business. It becomes devoid of any soul. And I think so that's why passion becomes a mission-critical ingredient towards future success in consumer businesses like ours.
So, considering the fact that there is a fair amount of friction, and some of that friction also tends to be infrastructure, and we can sort of compare all of that. What are the things that you think from an infrastructure perspective? Like he talked about the fact that there's power that's always available, right? What are the advantages that you sort of have seen from an infrastructure perspective that has worked for Bombay and for you as early stage companies, right? And when you are building this up, and plus also the fact that Bombay has not necessarily, of course now it's changed a bit, but then earlier on, Bombay didn't have that many seed and early stage investors. There were few of them, but not that many compared to, let's say, a Bangalore. But that is all changing now, and you now have a fairly large investor ecosystem as well. So when you guys were sort of building this up, was there a challenge that you also sort of saw, and was that, from an infrastructure perspective, capital being one of them, was that also a friction that you sort of also saw and sort of considered that as one of the differentiators when it came to another location?
So the answer is no. I think we saw a lot of merits of being here. First, you need to go to, when you're starting any company, right, there is always tons of friction. So you go towards opportunities where the friction is least. In the world we were in, given the high density of population, the high density of residential, commercial offices, everything in close proximity, it becomes extremely easy to execute when you can get anyone at your beck and call within 60 minutes, right? You don't have to spend 2 hours, given the city is very spread out. So we found it incredibly valuable to have the ability to reach people extremely quick because of the proximity involved.
In our case, actually, infrastructure is an advantage being in Bombay, as I said. In our business, you need power quality is everything. Connectivity is also, fiber. International landing station is in Mumbai. So it's only in Mumbai and Chennai right now, and Kerala, but you don't count Kerala. So infrastructure actually was an advantage. As far as commuting goes, I think I would argue that Mumbai has always had a good public transport system. It's now obviously got overcrowded, and now the current government is rebuilding that. So I think we will have a couple of years of pain, but I think eventually the transport system will be second to none. So from an overall infrastructure perspective, I think Mumbai is second to none once this is built, right? And in talking of office rents, there are areas in New Bombay, there's areas in Thane adjoining where rents are pretty reasonable. Just to add to the point that Ajay made, right? We actually build our data centers not even in New Bombay. We build our data centers in the heart of Bombay, and that is in Chandivali and Vikhroli, because power quality is best. We've got Tata Power here. Some of the New Bombay locations you have to deal with MSCGCL, where they don't even they go on strikes and stuff, and it could jeopardize your business. And customers, our global customers, including hyperscalers, are willing to pay a premium. So your cost is higher, but you get more. And the entire competition is in New Bombay. So they fight for business that comes to New Bombay, and end up compromising margins. Whereas we can sit in Bombay, our cost may be slightly higher, but we get higher margins, higher prices.
Great. So, I'm actually going to throw it up to questions now because we need to end.
A question here, please.
So let me first get Mohan's question and then I'll come to you. I only have time for 2 questions because I've been asked to sort of wind this, and then we can always have an offline conversation later on. Please, Mohan.
Now let me explain as an outsider why I think Bombay should be hot. Now Bombay should focus on its strengths, not its weaknesses. You are not a tech center, let's admit it. You will not be. Okay? Because there's no brand Bombay called tech. Brand Bombay is finance, is the stock market, is the movies, is big business, is real estate, but not tech. So let's be clear about that. That's not other brand. So what has Bombay got? Bombay has got a fantastic creative industry. The best creative minds in India are in Bombay.
Absolutely.
So you must focus on content, on creativity and everything else, because now the consumer part is now the most important thing, not the back-end tech. Back-end tech has become easy to do, but the consumer part is the most important. How do you interact with the consumer? Second, entertainment. Now entertainment is going to be the biggest industry because with AR and VR coming there, virtual reality coming into play, people are going to spend more time into, and hopefully government will give everybody money to live with that basic income and all that, roti kapda makan will get. So Modi has given that to everybody, so you can spend your whole time looking at entertainment. That's very important, all right? And the third thing which you can do is, Bombay is a huge consumer market.
Yeah.
How do you make a consumer business to attract the market? Bombay's GDP today, in my reckoning, is about $200 billion. And it's growing. Now it will probably grow at 4 to 5%, maybe 8%. So you've got to focus on that. And the next thing which Bombay has to do is, Bombay has to pick on its strengths in certain areas. For example, fintech. Now you've got to have the largest fintech incubator. The stock markets are there, they're sleeping, they're not doing anything. I'm trying to push them. And then you've got the biggest bank, State Bank of India, all the banks are here. They should be running fintech like they do in London.
So which is one of the things that TiE Mumbai is actually sort of
And lastly, look at New York. New York was the boondocks, till they came and said, we're going to bring tech. And then they brought in tech. Now New York has suddenly become hot because New York gives the quality of life that people want. People no longer want to sit in suburbs and commute. They want to stay close to the place, and they want to, that will be a global trend. So I think you focus on your strengths, you do very well in the future.
So what do you guys say? I mean, last closing points because we're going to wrap this up. The last question.
Absolutely the last question. Everybody is so gung-ho about Mumbai today, and I get that. Today's theme is that. But if you look at all our cities, whether it be Delhi or Mumbai or Bangalore, the kind of problems we are facing are humongous. It's not just real estate, infrastructure, it's even air quality. What I want to ask is, 100 years back, we had people like the Tatas doing Jamshedpur, which is a metaphorical desert, oasis in the desert, right? Why are today's billionaires, dollar billionaires, not trying to, we have huge geographical landmarks. Why are we not trying to take some of our businesses out of the big cities into the smaller ones? We are doing that to some extent, but also into arid areas, where there's nothing. We can get the talent there, we can get the power there. Isn't this a real social concern? And what are we doing to address this instead of saying, let's get more business into Mumbai and Delhi and Bangalore and let's improve it? Is this an issue?
No, I mean, that's a valid question, but I think, that question also sort of is a very long conversation and discussion. And I think, unfortunately, time constraints doesn't permit us to actually sort of go into that. But no, that's a valid concern, and that's a concern that, all of us as entrepreneurs, investors, even the government has, and I think that's something that is also always being addressed. But, to sort of very specifically answer that question, I think we'll have to actually have a sort of a longer conversation, which unfortunately time is not permitting, but hopefully we'll have an offline discussion around that. Thank you, Siddharth, thank you, Sharad, thank you, Rahul, and thank you.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. I request Harish ji to please step forward and felicitate our speakers. Harish Mehta, the founder, president, TiE Mumbai, and founder of NASCOM. For our next session, I'd like to invite our keynote speaker, Mohandas Pai, Chairman,